Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. Today's video I am so excited to introduce because this is an idea that I've been sitting on for a while. I finally gotten around to messaging these 4 creators and asking them whether or not it was okay for me to feature them in this video, and of course they were all so gracious in telling me yes. I've picked one of each of their favorites to feature in this video and read, and I'm really hoping that I find potentially 4 new favorite books for this year. So for Elias, I originally was thinking of reading Piranesi because whenever I think of Piranesi, that is just his brand for me, but he was so kind in sending me other books that he really enjoyed. And so I decided to sample some of the books that he told me about. And I ended up picking up Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jedrowski. If I am pronouncing the last name wrong, I am sorry. But yes, I sampled this one and immediately was enthralled and pulled in by the writing style. And I thought this would be a perfect book to feature for Elias's favorite. And the next creator I am featuring is Erin from Booked and Busy. And this book I picked up solely because it was one of her favorites of the year that she had read it, and it is The Traveling Cat Chronicles. This one I know made her cry, and honestly, I think I am really looking forward to a good little sob. I really hope this is emotionally impactful for me, and I'm just anticipating to see what about this book made Erin cry. The third creator that I am featuring is Stephanie from Stephanie Bookish, and the book that I chose for her is The Vanished Birds. I know this one is more sci-fi leaning. I'm not too much of a sci-fi reader, so I'm really interested in trying this one out and seeing how I get along with sci-fi, but I do know this has a strong found family element, and I am a found family gal, so I think Simon Jimenez and I could get along well with each other. And the final creator for this video is Kayla from Books and Lala, and of course, I'm reading Bunny by Mona Awad. This one I find so funny because when I messaged her, I was like, hey, I want to feature you in a reading vlog and I wanted to read Bunny, and she said, Bunny is a perfect pick. You're either going to hate it like everybody else, or you're going to love it and be part of the little weird bunny cult that we have going on. And personally, I kind of want to be part of the little bunny club, but who knows. So these are the 4 books I will be featuring in today's video. I'm so excited to start the ball rolling on these reads, and I really hope that I end up liking all 4 of them. Again, Bunny is probably the only one out of the 4 that I'm the most apprehensive about, I think, but honestly, look so forward to reading these books. But yeah, once I start reading, I'll go ahead and check in with you and tell you how everything is going. So I have started the first book of this video, Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jedrowski. This book follows 2 young men and their growing love over the span of a summer in 1980s Poland, and I believe we get to see the progression of their relationship and, unfortunately, the tense political divide within their country having a heavy impact on how their relationship develops. So I have read the prologue and the first chapter of this book, so I'm about 10% of the way in, and it's quite a short one. I believe it spans 190 pages. The first page of the prologue, I was sold. I was very pulled in. The writing just feels so full. It feels so alive and so intimate. It's very straight to the point and concise, but it has such vivid imagery. Within the first chapter of this read, we are only meeting our main character at the age of 9, and he's telling us about when he first met this young boy who he eventually becomes friends with and develops a crush on. And it's probably in less than a span of a year, maybe a year. And they're growing into boyhood. They are going to first communion classes together. And he is just so pulled to this young boy, and he's starting to realize that he's developing an attraction to his friend, and he's not sure how to feel about that. There is so much yearning, so much wanting and longing for his friend, and then there's also a sense of shame and guilt that he has, just discovering your sexuality and, you know, not being in an environment where you are taught that that is okay. And I think it's not even described in this intense way. And I just like, it's so hard for me to explain this writing because it just feels so close. Like, I feel like I am in the mind of our main character, and I'm feeling what he's feeling at the age of 9. I feel the guilt that he feels. I feel this intense yearning, and it is just so beautifully written. It kind of reminds me of my experience with On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and it almost has the same sort of letter writing that On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous has. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is written to Little Dog's mother, whereas this one, I believe we are kind of reading this journal or these writings that are to his lover. This is just one chapter. I also have the audiobook from Libby, and I will say that there is so much emotion in how the narrator reads the story, and I think it adds so much to it. This book, I feel, is going to devastate me, genuinely. There is something about queer yearning that makes me want to throw up a little bit. And not in like a rude way, like in a, oh my gosh, I feel very feral kind of way. 10% in, and I'm already in shambles, personally. Very much in shambles. I'm kind of second guessing whether or not this is going to be a good video, because I feel like at this point, I'm probably going to cry for the next 3 books. And then Bunny, I could cry because of how horrifying it is. I don't know. So this could just be a tear-filled video, but I'm going to have to give Elias his flowers on this one. This was a great recommendation, honestly. And this isn't like a type of book that I usually read. Like, I'm not too in the literary fiction, historical fiction kind of reading genre. So this is nice because it's pushing me out of my comfort zone and what I usually read. It's just no words, very speechless, very in awe, very captivated. Yeah. So I'm going to go now, for real, and I'm going to go read. I just finished Swimming in the Dark, and honestly, I kind of want to keep my thoughts to a minimum because it is such a short read that I don't want to like ruin any like moments and emotional impact of this book. But what I will say is that it just feels so quietly devastating. And I think that the emotion that I experienced within the prologue and the first chapter really does build throughout the narrative and is just so well done. And I think you just stay so wrapped up in the emotions of our main character. And I think that serves the story so well. Yeah, just the emotional impact. I'm still like processing the end of the book and like the climactic parts of this read. The book does reference Giovanni's Room a lot, and that was a read that I really took a lot from when I had read it several years ago, but just seeing how that reference kind of impacts the story was really well done, I think. And just overall, what a reading experience. It was really quick. On the audiobook, it said that I was reading for about 3.5 hours ish. So definitely a quick read, a read that you can finish within the day. But it definitely leaves this lingering impact, which I really enjoy with when I read. I really enjoy a lingering impact, and that's definitely what this book does. Copy from my library, there is an interview with the author, and the author does speak about how this story had been in the drafts for a while, and it had a different outcome at the time in the author's life because they were in a more melancholy and sad moment in their life. And for the author to continue writing the story and changing the narrative and shaping the narrative into something different and taking the time to craft the story the way that it is, I think is just so beautiful in craftsmanship. And I really am thankful that the author stuck to the story and continued to work on it and ended up putting it out into the world, because it definitely was an experience that was just so unlike anything else that I've read this year. I'm so glad that we started off this vlog with a hit, and thank you so much, Elias, for again putting this on my radar and potentially giving me a new favorite read of the year. So with that, I'm going to return my copy to my library and settle down for the night, get ready for work, and while I do all of that, I'm going to start the next book of this vlog, The Traveling Cat Chronicles. Alright, so before I introduce the next book that I finished and read yesterday, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I did cut my hair. I've wanted a bit of a change, and I thought, why not go full bob with it? I think this is the best way to change my hair without having to deal with the maintenance of dyeing my hair, so this is where we're at. It's been like a full day since I've had my haircut, and I'm really enjoying the vibes. I just feel so nice and fresh. But anyway, you're not here to hear about my hair. So, the book that I read and completed yesterday is The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa, and this is the book that I chose for Erin from Booked and Busy. This, I believe, was her favorite of 2021, and she was the reason why I even picked up this book. I had not heard about it before, and oh my goodness. This book is such a simple yet warm hug of a book, and the basic premise is that we meet this cat, and we are introduced to how he meets his owner, Satoru, and Satoru is the one who gives this cat its name. And after that prologue introduction, we follow Satoru as he visits these impactful people in his life, and he's introducing his cat to these people because something came up in his life where he can no longer take care of this cat, and he wants to see who of his friends can take care of the cat and love the cat the way he thinks the cat deserves. We get to see Satoru through the cat's eyes, but then we also get to see this reflection of his friends and how he deeply impacted their lives when they were younger. And it's such a unique POV because it's not Satoru telling us the story, it's this cat, and this cat getting to know Satoru before he even knew who Satoru was, or even before the cat was alive. And it was such a dynamic way to get to know this character, to get to know the cat, and to get to know Satoru's friends and the people who impacted his life. I won't say too much, obviously, because, don't want to spoil the end for you. This book, after I finished it, I just sat there and I was like, Erin, I know you didn't write this book, but how could you? How could you make me cry like that? The thing is this book wasn't one of those cries like Swimming in the Dark, where it's very melancholic, very sad. There is a lot of light in this book, but the tears that come from this book is just the beautiful reflection of life, and I think that's what I like about the sort of slice of life narratives that I have witnessed in Japanese media, is that there's always these reflections of the importance of small moments in your life. Yeah. And the relationship between Satoru and the cat is just so, it's just so, very cutesy. I want to hug this book and cry. See how I don't cry on camera? It's very demure. Thank you, Erin, for putting this book on my radar. I think you and Elias get to join I Made Jenny Cry list, so we'll put that on the corner here. I know neither of you wrote the books, but both of you went ahead and said, yeah, that is a great suggestion for you to read this beautiful summer season. And do I thank you? A little bit, because it kind of changed my life. Yes. But at the same time, I'm like, these people don't like me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, great second book for this video. But yeah, I would highly suggest that you pick up the Traveling Cat Chronicles. Just like Swimming in the Dark, it's quite a quick read. The way the chapters are sectioned off, it almost feels like short story. So if you didn't want to read it all in a day, you could take it one chapter at a time, because each chapter is a different friend of Satoru's that they're going to see. That is the second book of this video done. The next book I'm going to be picking up is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez, and I messaged Stephanie after I finished Traveling Cat Chronicles, and she's like, did you cry? And yeah, I cried. And I asked her, I was like, this one's not going to make me cry, right? And her response was more of those like, it's just as devastating. This book I actually don't know too much about, and I want to kind of keep it that way. I know it's a found family sci-fi. I am a lover of found family. That is a top tier trope for me ever since I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender as a child. It changed my life. And so every single time I hear about found family in a book, I'm like, yeah, that's probably going to work for me. But this one is this older woman, I think. She takes in a young child, and it's not like she wants to be a mother, but she has to mother this young child that she is given. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure what the plot points in this are. And so I'm just excited to be introduced to this author. Once I start the book and have more to say, I'll go ahead and update you. But other than that, I'm going to get going, and we'll see how The Vanished Birds goes. Okay, I'm going to do my first check-in for The Vanished Birds. Basically, the first chapter, we see that Nia is the captain of this ship. She goes through time loops in order to pick up cargo from different planets and deliver them to different places. Her character is tackling like this theme of this stagnant place in life where she goes back to places and people are changing and aging and having this entire life without her, and she comes back to these places barely aged like a day in their perspective, and with that comes quite a bit of loneliness. And she, at the end of the first chapter, is tasked to take care of this young boy who is mute. And we kind of figure out that he has suffered quite an amount of abuse in his lifetime. And because he isn't verbal, he hasn't told anybody what those abuses are. But the nurses can see from the injuries that his body has sustained that he has experienced physical abuse in his lifetime, and I think he's only like 11 years old, so quite some heavy themes from the very get-go. And for this also to be my first sci-fi, it's not too difficult for me to catch on to the themes. Like, I don't think anything too intense has happened. It's mostly Nia and her ship going through specific time loops in order to like fast travel to different places, I assume, but nothing too intense. It definitely is character focused, and that's what I'm enjoying so much. And the writing is well done. It's not too extremely like purple prose in any sense, but it definitely feels heavier in tone, which I'm not surprised about. And I think that's why the first two books that I've read in this video have worked so well for me, because there are elements that are really beautifully written. There's parts of it that are a little bit more lighthearted, but at the core of both of the last two books that I've read is that it's very character focused, but there is an emotional impact that comes with the writing. And I mean, Swimming in the Dark and the Traveling Cat Chronicles are very different on the spectrum of tone and theme, I think, but they still carried out an emotional impact. And I think that, yeah, I think I picked some really good books for this video, and I'm just excited to see where The Vanished Birds goes. We'll most likely be introduced to different people who are joining Nia's crew, and I'm really excited to see the other characters that we will be introduced to. So I'm gonna get going, and once I read more, I will update you. Okay, I'm here to film an update. Since I last spoke to you, I've only read like 10%. The thing is this book has quite long chapters, so I feel like I've been reading for a long time, even though it's like I've only read 3 chapters up to this point. But I wanted to check in because the 3rd chapter, we're introduced to a new character, and the queer relationship that is explored in this 3rd chapter was just so like, and that's all in 1 chapter. Okay, like the impact of this character, and I'm not sure how much more play this character is going to have in the rest of this story, because from what I know, they're from like a later time in the story. But Simon Jimenez, I'm pretty sure this is their debut as well, and the impact that chapter had on me, after I finished, I just had to pause and stare at the wall a little bit because he hurt me a little bit. He really did. And we're slowly getting to see our main character, Nia, and the relationship between her and this young boy, and like the protectiveness she has for him. The thing is the book isn't written in this very purple prose way. It's like it's not too overly explained or described, but I think the simplicity of the writing just makes the more emotional scenes so much more impactful, because it's just like for example, one scene with the young boy, he's crying and devastated, and Nia makes a comment about how she didn't even notice that he was crying, and he was so quiet in his grief, and it's just like, and I just sit here and I think like, Simon, why are you hurting me like this? We don't even know each other. So yeah, I think this book is really going to change my life, ruin my life. And I told Stephanie, I was like, yeah, this book is really gonna do me in. And she said, yeah, fair, that's the only reaction you should have to this book. And I'm like, what did I do? Why did I set myself up like this? And the thing is I'm not having a terrible time. Like, I'm very much enjoying this book, but it has so much emotional impact for me at the moment that I'm like, wow. Whew, I am reading a book. This is not an easy little project that I've given myself, but this video is really fun for me because not only did I pick books that are outside the typical genre that I usually read, but also I don't have like 100% alignment with taste with these creators. I think when I first started watching Elias, he was talking more about thrillers and horrors, and you know, when I got back into reading, I was reading YA fantasy again, and it was just interesting to watch his perspective on different books. And I think I continue to watch him because his taste in fantasy aligned with me pretty well. I know he's a really big fan of Robin Hobb, and of course I am too, so, you know, if anybody's a Robin Hobb fan, I'm going to trust you to some extent, right? There's my bias there. And with Erin, I trust her recommendations 100%. She is like a magician when it comes to giving book recommendations. Like, I don't know how she does it, but she's like, oh, you like that one book? Well, here's like 20 other books that you can like. And I don't think I've ever read a book that Erin recommended that I did not give above a 4-star. Like, that's how much she is so good at recommending books. And with Stephanie and I think out of everyone that I chose to feature in this video, her and I have very equal tastes. So choosing a more sci-fi from her favorites, I think was really a good choice on my part because I know how much we align with our thoughts and opinions on books. I had a little mini goal of reading sci-fi this year, and so I think this book is such a great pick for me to be introduced to this genre. And then I think with Kayla, her being featured in this one is the most fun for me because I've just been getting into horror, and when I first started watching Kayla, she was someone who I was like, I've not heard of a single book she is talking about right now, but I love the way she speaks about books and how she formats her videos. And I know like the horrors that I have read thus far are ones that she's liked and enjoyed, and so I'm just really interested to see, like, even though we differ so greatly in what we typically read, because I'm being more introduced into the genre that I know she reads a lot of, I'm really interested to see how Bunny pans out for me. I know it's one that people tend to not like, but I don't know, who knows? I'm very open. And this video is just so interesting for me because I thought that these books thus far would be so different from each other, but I see so many of these same thematics, and I can see the threads of like why I like certain stories and what works and what doesn't. And it's all of these major things that are being hit, like character, emotional impact, all those things. And it's really nice to see that throughout different genres that I'm trying out for this video. But yeah, all of that yapping to say that I'm enjoying what I'm reading, even though it's emotionally devastating, but in a good way, in an impactful way, and in a way that makes me think. And I'm enjoying thinking and pondering my life. But anyway, I'm gonna go continue to let Simon Jimenez ruin my life and, updating Stephanie on how she also is ruining my life by making this her favorite last year. She didn't force me to pick this. I told her that I'm going to read The Vanished Birds. But, if it's her favorite book, who is she to say don't read it, right? But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Hopefully all my yapping made a semblance of sense, but I will leave you here, and I will come back maybe when I'm in tears next. Honestly, I think that my only thoughts at this moment is that I kind of want to scream, but that's probably not appropriate to do on camera. I don't want that in my digital footprint. Am I surprised that this made me cry and emotionally devastated? No. Am I questioning my friendship with Stephanie? No. But it is making me question why myself, beautiful Stephanie, and a few of my other friends from the Witchwood Apothecary love misery and pain. It's just an interesting thread of connection between me and my online friends, I think. What even further to say? The cry count is 3 out of 4. This book was stunning, amazing, beautifully written. The beginning, where the story kind of felt slightly separated and disjointed, and how it slowly but surely came together. The well-built characters, the frustration you feel at characters' choices, but also the deep empathy you feel for them. and you sit there and you question, do I even like you? Do I hate you? Do I want to hug you? Simon Jimenez. Actually, the last part, that entirety of the last part, I just sat there and I was like, Lord, is this where the story is really going? Because the found family, the exploration of loneliness, the exploration of abuse, and learning to trust other people and develop friendships, the moments of coming of age, the casual queerness, all the things. I can't think about it too much because I think I'll actually cry, and I'm not going to do that on camera. But yeah, what a stunning book! What a stunning book! I am going to think about this. I'm going to go back in and highlight more and just contemplate my life. Here's a little snippet for my Realm of the Elderling fans. Fool's Errand, yeah. I know Fool's Errand is a super common, like, phrase, but every time I see it, I'm like, the fool. Yeah. And now that I'm emotionally connected to this book, and I found a Realm of the Elderling nugget, yeah. Whew, yeah. I know that I am not doing anything worthwhile just saying, yeah, amazing, right? But it's one of those books where it's like, when it comes together, the full circle moments, it kind of makes me feel how I felt about the Traveling Cat Chronicles, where we are seeing these smaller short stories of people's lives and then seeing that full circle moment of how they connect and how these people end up meeting. And The Vanished Birds has those elements where we're seeing these smaller snippets of people's lives and then slowly how they come together to impact not only each other but the entirety of like this universal space that they inhabit. There's a lot of relational themes that are covered in here, but also this like overarching plot of colonization and like what sort of things people are willing to sacrifice or ignore in order to progress in the world. And I think Simon Jimenez did a really good job covering those things. Yeah, as my first sci-fi, good luck to the rest of the genre, am I right? I'm just kidding. I know that there's a lot of really good sci-fi out there, but like, way to start my venture into this genre, truly. Honestly, I was attempting to rank all of the books, and Swimming in the Dark, what a gut punch, amazing start to this video. And then Traveling Cat Chronicles, I was like, wow, this is amazing. The sort of like relationship and character work in that, like, you can't even compare the two because they're such different stories. And then The Vanished Birds has like the same elements of like deep character study, emotional impact, how we impact the world and each other. Like, sorry, there's no ranking because all the girls are queens, truly. So, just know that I highly recommend this. I love this. And we don't need to rank these books. So, don't ask me because that will probably be a whole hour video in and of itself. And because they're all so different. I think everybody should be celebrated equally in this video at this point. Speaking of somebody to celebrate, are we going to celebrate Miss Bunny by the end of this video? Who knows? And this book, I just look at and I think, I have had you on my shelf for a year and I'm too afraid to open you because I am terrified that I'm going to either hate your guts or be so obsessed that my personality changes. So, All I know about this book is that we follow our main character, Samantha. She's in like this writing program. I think getting her master's degree. I could be wrong about that, but I know she's in a program at a university for writing, and then there's this group of girls in her class that call each other Bunny, and I think she's like giving really big hater energy in the beginning, and she's like, "Oh, why are these girls like so hyper feminine and like calling each other Bunny? They're so annoying." And she's like this kind of lone wolf in her class, and then all of a sudden she gets an invite to join the bunnies. Will she get inducted in this little cult, or will she still be a hater? We'll find out. I know it's more of a horror, so I'm really interested to see where the horror elements come into. Once I start it, and maybe around the 10% mark, I'll come back and give you some updates. But I will say the hot pink of this is so beautiful. I wish the spine was hot pink like the front, but I just really like this shade. I'm gonna go read, and I will check in when I have some thoughts for you. I'm gonna do my first check-in for Bunny, and at this point I just completed chapter 4, and we've really got a pretty basic introduction to Samantha and her character and her friend Ava. And from what I've read thus far, her and Ava are very judgmental of the bunnies. She's like, there's a point where she's at some sort of faculty party, I think, and within like the first chapter, and she sees them kind of reunite and they're hugging each other and they're like, "Oh my god, Bunny, I've missed you, Bunny. Like, it's been so long since I've seen you, Bunny. Like, I wish we never separated and we didn't have to have summer. Like, I couldn't live without you." The energy of judgment is so palpable. I think it's really interesting. I think this is going to have like conversations and discussions on like judgment of people who present more hyper feminine, you know, and this could be an interesting discussion. I will say there are parts in the first 4 chapters that I've read that have me suspicious, but yeah, thus far it's just a little introduction. There clearly is something going on between our main character Samantha and one of the professors, and I'm sure that will come into play later on in this novel. But you know, thus far, nothing too scary, nothing too grotesque. There was a moment where Samantha's like, "I wish they would hug each other so tight that they would just blow up and explode." And I'm like, wow. The depiction, the description is really interesting, but I am positively optimistic on where this reading experience will go. But again, given it's only the intro, so it could either go up or really downhill from here, so who knows. But those are my first beginning thoughts. Hopefully I can read a bit more, get a good chunk read today, and then I can do a check-in later tonight and see where my thoughts and opinions are. Bunny, I am up to part 2, so about 40% into the book. Look at all these tabs. Pink, of course. And I'm really enjoying this book, and I am pleasantly surprised because I hear so many people say like, oh, they have like really mixed opinions on this read, and like you either hate it or really love it, and just something about this really works. Like every single page, there is just something to analyze and look into, and I'm just having such a fun time reading it and being like, what the hell is going on? But then also like just annotating pages and like questioning what is happening, if the things that Samantha is experiencing are real, or if it's like her imagination or like a delusion or hallucination she's experiencing. What's happening on page is interesting, but there's also this underlying question that you have. It's like, is this her true reality or is there something more going on? And I really enjoy it. Like, this is a book that I think on reread would be so interesting because knowing the ending would probably allow you to see more detail and insight that Mona Awad is laying out in the book. It is just so interesting seeing her dynamic with her friend versus her dynamic with the other bunnies, and just to see how like easily you can acclimate to a group of people that you said that you didn't like or that you were so judgmental of. And I don't know, starting part 2 next, I'm really excited to see where this goes, and hopefully my enjoyment of it continues. I have finished Bunny by Mona Awad. The only thing I could say is, what the fuck did I read? Truly, what the hell? I annotated the hell out of this book, and how do I even sum up my feelings and opinions on this book? I will say that this book, I can kind of understand why people didn't like it. It was the kind of weird, like tripping over yourself and completely falling and not stopping kind of feeling that I really liked and enjoyed. It's one of those books where I feel like you can go in kind of head empty, no thoughts, just vibing and letting the story take you wherever it wants to take you. And at the same time, it can be a book where you sit and you analyze the way it's written, the word choices, the perspective choices, the lines and crumbs of the story that are laid out by Mona Awad were just so interesting to me. Going into this, not really knowing that much of detail of what the narrative had in store, besides it being kind of culty, was possibly the best way for me to go into this novel. And honestly, it was a fun time, and maybe I am part of the Bunny cult now. I actually don't know what Kayla thought about this book. I know that it's like a 5-star read, obviously, that's why I picked it, but maybe let me go on, I'm gonna get my iPad and go on Goodreads and see what she said about this, because maybe she has more coherent thoughts than I do, because at this point, I'm not entirely sure how to sum up my feelings. Oh. Her review is just, ha ha ha, what the fuck. Honestly, same. Well, that's it for Bunny. I don't want to say too much because, I don't want to give away too much of the plot and spoil the experience, because it's just one of those things where you gotta buckle in and vibe with the weirdness. But I'm glad that this is the last book that I ended this reading vlog with, because all the other 3 were so emotionally devastating to me, and I was so sad. Like, even thinking about the other 3, I kind of like, oh god, I might just burst into tears. But with this one, I was just having a very silly, goofy, girly pop time. And I think that's what made it fun. Like, it was just very serious but unserious at the same time, and just what a joyful reading time this was. But with that, I'm going to end this video. I'd like to thank Elias, Erin, Stephanie, and Kayla for allowing me to feature them in this video, and for having just such amazing reading taste. I felt like not only does this confirm why I trust them as book content creators, but also it affirms to me that I know my reading taste well enough to pick things from genres that I don't typically read from. Elias's is a more historical literary fiction, which I don't read too often. Erin's was a translated fiction. Stephanie's was sci-fi, and then Kayla's pick was a horror. These are all types of books that I don't gravitate towards automatically, but I think that this video was probably the best results that I've had in all of the videos that I've created thus far. I had such a good time. All of these books were 4 stars and up, and honestly, I just feel revitalized for my love of reading, and it was just so nice getting to read the books that I know some of my favorite content creators love and adore. But with that, I'm going to let you go. Please leave a comment below of any of your favorite creators' favorite books that you've read and enjoyed, and potentially I could read those in the future. But if you don't have anything to say, I'll give you 4 emoji choices. You can either do a wave emoji for swimming in the dark, a cat emoji for the Traveling Cat Chronicles, a bird for Vanished Birds, and a bunny, obviously, for Bunny. But with that, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for following me on this journey. It was such a fun video to create, and I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!